Greetings, 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 no matter where you are and what part of the world you're in. I hope that you're having a good day. So, someone asked me today, well, what happened to your friend so and so and such and such and so and so and so and so? Well, what about so and so that made you those pancakes that time or made us those pancakes? Um, People come and go, right? And the person even said, oh, I feel like one of your friends may have been an agent. And that may be true. But people come and go for different reasons. Some of those relationships, I'm glad they're gone, whether it was my choice or their choice, because people are toxic. Some people, you have to say or do certain things to make them may think it's their choice. Um, but anyone who's no longer in your life, it's probably for a good reason. Everybody's not meant to stay with you for a lifetime. Some people come into your life for a season, some people come into your life for a reason, and some people stay for a lifetime. And you never know how long that person's going to stay. I was actually talking to one of my other friends yesterday. He and I have been friends over 20 years. And he jokes a lot. And he said he had another friend he's been friends with about 20 years. And all of a sudden, where this person would normally joke with him, the friend would call him ghetto, and he would call the friend bougie. Well, this particular time, the friend got upset about being called bougie. And depending on the person, bougie is not necessarily a negative thing, depending on who's saying it. It's just basically a way of saying that someone is high class or considers themselves to be high class. I consider myself to be boughetto. I can go on both sides of the fence, right? I could dress up, in a gown and be, elegant with the right accessories to match. And I can dress down with some sweats and some Timberlands on and, be comfortable in any environment. But I'm an Aquarius. You have certain people who think that they're supposed to stay the same, do the same thing, dress the same way, and they don't know how to change or be different than how they were born and raised. I have a very dynamic personality. I have a lot of interests. I have diverse tastes in clothing and in food choices. There are certain things that I won't eat, but I'm also willing to try a lot of things that some people are not willing to try. And so, you have those people who, again, they think they're supposed to stay exactly the same way as when they were born. And usually, most people are creatures of habit, but some people are stubborn with their habits. They're not open to anything new at all whatsoever, right? So, I forgot why I started saying that, but anyway, some people are open-minded and some people are closed-minded. And some people, no matter what the truth is, like I remember one of this person in particular, for quite some time, it had to be a few years, we had this conversation about, if it wasn't months, it may have been months, it may have been years, I can't remember. But anyway, we had this conversation about public schools in New Jersey. And I had already done my research for years. There's a scorecard, right? But I had already known this because I grew up in a what would be considered a black suburb, and then I moved to an urban area. This was in high school, so I was learning a lot more in this suburban high school, this black suburban high school. And it wasn't the best of school districts, right? It wasn't the top echelon, because the top was more next door to me. There were other areas, but this particular area that I lived next door to was, well, I lived in East Orange, grew up. It's funny. I was born in Jersey City, moved to East Orange, right? Again, at that time, East Orange public schools were better than Jersey City public schools. I did not know that until I moved back to Jersey City as a teenager. So this was basically when I was like 16, if I'm not mistaken. I was cutting class because I didn't have freedom growing up. And so once I realized that I could cut class in high school, I did so on a regular basis because that was the only time I really had freedom. And my mother used to say if I was a boy, it would be different. And I'm like, but it shouldn't be different, because in my mind, I'm thinking, I could be trusted. But because I was not given that freedom, then now you can't trust me, because I'm going to get it one way or the other. Because teenagers should not be sheltered, and teenagers should not be controlled in a way that makes them feel like they don't have a life. Like they need some type of freedom. So anyhow, I would cut class because, again, this was the only time I had freedom. We would go shopping. We would go to the movies. We would go out to eat, go and get ice cream, hang out with boys, whatever it was, because, again, this is what teenagers do. And if you're not allowed to do that willingly, you'll figure out a way to do it behind, someone's back. Anyway. What was I saying? I love this shirt. So I knew from experience and from reading, there's a book by Jonathan Kozol called Savage Inequalities. Maybe that I read that book after the fact. But anyhow, yeah, I read that book after the fact. I did, because I was still living in New Jersey when this conversation was going on. But anyway, based on having my own child, again, I had already read the scorecards and all of the different things, and I knew about the different school districts. I knew about it way before then, but I'm a researcher, so once I started doing my research about it, I knew even more. So I was explaining to her, in my mind, because I moved to Maplewood. Maplewood is a suburb in New Jersey. One of the suburbs. I don't know how it is now, because I know it started changing before I moved. But anyhow, it was one of the best school districts in the state. And Maplewood and South Orange have the same school district. And so, in my mind, it was better for me to move to an area where my son can go to a better school, instead of staying in an urban area where I would have to pay for him to go to private school or Catholic school. So it made sense to me to pay a little bit more money for rent, and again, live in a good area with a good school district, as opposed to staying in an urban area paying for Catholic school. Her son was a little bit younger than mine, maybe 2 or 3 years younger, and she did the opposite. She stayed in the urban area, and she decided to, she says the father of her son decided to pay for public school. And I was explaining to her that, depending on where you live, the school districts are better. And she said, no, it's still public school. It's all the same. And again, we had this conversation several times. And maybe a year or two later, she realized that you're right. The school districts are better. And I mentioned that because You can tell somebody the truth, but if they don't want to believe it, because again, especially from the source, cognitive dissonance is a really big thing. People don't want their illusions to be distorted. So, especially depending on who it's coming from, right? If it's coming from someone they consider high class, or they consider um more knowledgeable than you, then they may be more willing to receive the information. But going to the same school district or the same public school and getting this information from somebody who you consider on your same level or your peer, it's hard to receive for some people. They don't want to hear it, right? You're not older than me. You're not, so how do you know you're wrong? And they will, just be stubborn about even listening to it. They won't try to do their own research or anything. And so this is one of the things that makes people toxic. I just used that one thing as an example, but this is something that makes people toxic. And a lot of times, you know, again, once somebody removes themselves from your life, or you remove yourself from someone else's life after having dealt with several toxic situations like this, you're glad that they're no longer there, because you don't have to have these type of debates. Some people think it's, this is what you're supposed to do, but I am of the mindset that this is toxic. Nobody wants to, you know deal with somebody who's constantly argumentative, especially, and then when, and it's not about being right, but when you're right. For me, some people will keep arguing and going back and forth. I'm gonna say, oh, okay, and I'm gonna leave the conversation alone, and I'm gonna say, let me get off this phone. I'm about to do so and so, so let me get off this phone. Or if you're in each other's presence, you just can't wait to get away from that person. And for whatever reason, that person may feel the same way about you, and it's okay. Um, I know that too, some people have a problem with people being late. I know one of my other friends, and it reminded me of the same person. Like, how do you get mad because somebody's late? As if you're taking it personal, as if it has anything to do with you. That doesn't make logical sense to me. But then I had another friend who had a situation with someone who got mad at them for being late, and it became a whole argument, and they had a whole falling out. And I'm like, really? People are that controlling, or think that, I don't know what they think, but I just don't understand that logic, because things happen, especially if someone tries to explain to you what happened, right? But a lot of times people think, oh, well, this person is just lying, or they're just making it up. And that may not necessarily be the case. Like, I do my best to tell the truth, but if you don't believe me, that's not my problem. That's your problem, right? So, again, a lot of people exhibit toxic behaviors that they don't realize are toxic. And so that when you remove yourself, some of them do know that they're being toxic, right? But some of them are so high and mighty, or think so highly of yourself, and they should think highly of themselves, but not to the point of spiting other people, right? But you can't tell people how to operate. People do what they think is best, and they should. And I tell people that all the time. You should do what you think is best. But just because you're doing what you think is best for you, the other person on the other end will have to do what they think is best for them, and those things may not line up. But again, a lot of people don't realize how toxic they are or can be. And they're and some of them are snobby with it, and just thinking that they're better than someone else, when they still have a lot to learn about life. I'll just say it that way. So again, when people remove themselves, or you distance yourself from someone, a lot of times it's a good thing. And sometimes you may be left with, by yourself, or with just one or two really close friends that, you can really confide in and trust. And that it's okay. So the person said, well, do you not get lonely sometimes? No. Not for those type of energies that don't serve a good purpose in my life. Absolutely not. Do I wish I had more like-minded friends? Absolutely. And I actually do. And if when I'm ready to go see them or talk to them, I know where to go. That option is always available to me. Then with my friend, like I said, one will call one bougie and the other will call the other one ghetto, but all of a sudden this was a problem for this person. And if you change, people change, we outgrow each other, and it could be 20 years, it could be 30 years. It could be longer than that. It could be shorter than that. But we do sometimes outgrow people. But my response to that was, if he now think it's offensive for you to call him bougie, he should say that instead of getting an attitude and becoming argumentative because of it. That's not how you handle that. Unless you just don't want to be bothered with somebody and you're hoping that this makes that person go away. That works really well if it's opposite sex or someone you're dating and you don't want to be bothered anymore, and you get them upset so that make them think that it was their idea, so that it's an easier and a smoother transition. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. You know, we're not meant to stay with everybody for a lifetime, and even if it's 20 years that you've had this friendship or relationship or connection, whatever it is, it can go away for whatever reason, because we do grow apart, and it's okay. A lot of times we were only meant to for someone to be in our life for a season, or we were only meant to learn a lesson from them. We weren't meant to stay friends for a long time or be in a relationship for a long time. So, and that's one of the reasons why it's toxic or it doesn't work. I remember somebody saying to me, they got into a relationship with somebody after a few months and ended up being pregnant. And this person said to me when they were about 8 months pregnant, I realized we haven't even been together a year yet, and I don't even like this person. A lot of times we have to take our time to get to know people. I say this, right? I say this to people, especially new people that I meet. I say, what if this person that you're attracted to was only meant to be in your life to help you grow a business and become a millionaire? And because you had sex with this person, it completely negates you getting that $1 million. That's something to think about. Love y'all.